The announcement. The lights of the studio burned bright that evening, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Millions of viewers had tuned in for what they thought would be just another interview with the world's most enigmatic entrepreneur. Elon Musk sat across from the host, his posture relaxed but his eyes intense as always. Those same eyes that had envisioned electric cars dominating highways and rockets piercing the atmosphere on their way to Mars. No one expected what came next. As the interview shifted toward his latest technological ventures, Musk suddenly straightened in his chair. There was a momentary change in his demeanor, subtle, but noticeable to those who had watched him over the years. He cleared his throat. "I've decided to be baptized," he said, his voice steady and deliberate. The studio fell into absolute silence. The interviewer's eyes widened, her prepared questions suddenly irrelevant. The audience sat stunned, many leaning forward as if they hadn't heard correctly. "I'm sorry, did you just say?" the interviewer began. "Yes," Musk confirmed with a slight nod. "I've decided to be baptized." The audience erupted in gasps and whispers. The interviewer, struggling to maintain her composure, gripped her question cards tightly. This is unexpected," she managed. "Why now? Why baptism?" Before she could elaborate on her question, Musk continued, his gaze unwavering. "It's not just about faith. It's something I've thought about for a long time. My journey through life has been about seeking answers, and this is the next step in my search for truth." The cameras zoomed in on his face, capturing every nuance of his expression. There was no hint of his usual enigmatic smile, no suggestion that this might be another of his elaborate jokes or publicity stunts. Instead, there was a seriousness, a depth that seemed to reveal glimpses of a private struggle the public had never been privy to. "I've spent years building things that changed the world," he continued, his voice becoming more contemplative. "But the more I accomplish, the more I realize how small I am in the grand scheme of things. There are questions that science can't answer, mysteries that technology can't solve. I believe there's something more to explore." His words resonated through the studio and into millions of homes around the world. Social media exploded within seconds. News alerts pinged on smartphones globally. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What had prompted this unexpected spiritual turn from a man who had built his empire on scientific rationalism? The interviewer, recovering her professional poise, leaned forward. "This is quite a departure from your previous public positions on spirituality. Can you tell us what led to this decision?" Musk's eyes seemed to look past her, beyond the cameras, as if searching for the right words. "There comes a point when you've climbed every mountain, achieved goals others thought impossible, and you still find yourself asking, is this all there is? I've realized that my search for meaning can't be fulfilled only through technology or financial success." The tension in the studio was palpable. Viewers around the world were glued to their screens, transfixed by the raw vulnerability from a man usually known for his calculated public persona. "Will this affect your business ventures? Your vision for SpaceX or Tesla?" the interviewer pressed. "My work continues," Musk replied simply, "but perhaps with a different perspective. I don't see science and spirituality as contradictory forces. In many ways, they're both paths to understanding the universe. One looks outward, the other inward." As the interview continued, it became clear that Musk wasn't interested in debating theology or defending his decision. He spoke instead about his personal journey, about questions that had haunted him through sleepless nights as he built his business empire. When the segment ended and the broadcast cut to commercial, the world was left with more questions than answers. News networks scrambled to assemble panels of experts, religious leaders, tech analysts, and psychologists, all attempting to dissect what had just happened. What none of them knew was that this was just the beginning. Elon Musk's spiritual journey was about to captivate the world in ways no one could have anticipated. Elon Musk stood at the riverbank, still dripping from his baptism, looking directly into the camera with an intensity that seemed to reach through screens and touch viewers personally. The quiet around him was absolute. No music, no commentary, just the gentle sound of flowing water and distant birdsong. 4 years, he began, his voice steady but somehow different from his usual public speaking tone. "I've been focused on innovation, pushing the boundaries of technology and science. But in all of that, I've realized that there are things science can't explain. He paused, his gaze unwavering. Faith isn't about denying science. It's about recognizing that there's more to life than we can see or touch. There's a power beyond us, and I've come to realize that I've been searching for it all along. As he spoke, the camera occasionally panned to show the serene landscape around him. The flowing river, the trees swaying gently in the breeze, a stark contrast to the high-tech environments usually associated with his public appearances. We live in a time where it's easy to get lost in our work, in our goals, in our daily struggles, he continued. Sometimes we need to stop and ask ourselves what really matters. What are we building for? What legacy do we want to leave? His words weren't rehearsed or polished. They carried the raw quality of someone speaking from personal experience rather than a prepared script. I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning, still seeking. But I've found that there's value in the search itself, in asking questions that don't have easy answers, in being humble enough to admit what we don't know. He looked down briefly, as if gathering his thoughts, then back at the camera. It's not about what you believe. It's about searching for the truth, wherever that journey takes you. For some, that path leads through science and technology. For others, through faith and spirituality. For me, I'm discovering that perhaps it's both. As his message concluded, Musk offered a small, genuine smile, not the confident grin known from tech presentations, but something more vulnerable and real. Thank you for witnessing this moment with me. This isn't the end of anything. It's just another step in a much longer journey. The broadcast continued for a few minutes, showing Musk speaking quietly with the pastor before the feed faded to black, leaving viewers worldwide in contemplative silence. Within minutes, social media erupted. His message had resonated deeply with millions, transcending religious and cultural boundaries. People who had never considered themselves spiritual were suddenly engaged in conversations about meaning and purpose. Those who had followed Musk for his technological innovations found themselves discussing philosophy and faith. Hey, Fame Finder community! If you're enjoying this deep dive into how a spiritual journey might unfold for one of the world's most influential figures, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing family of truth seekers. Your support helps us continue bringing you content that makes you think beyond the headlines. Like this video if you're finding value in it, and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on the intersection of technology and spirituality in today's world. The reaction. The hours and days following Elon Musk's baptism and message saw a global reaction unlike anything witnessed for a non-catastrophic event. News outlets worldwide led with the story. Social media platforms were overwhelmed with discussions, analyses, and reactions ranging from profound respect to cynical dismissal. Religious leaders from various faiths offered their perspectives. A prominent Christian minister called it a powerful reminder that even those at the pinnacle of scientific achievement can recognize the spiritual dimension of human existence. A well-known imam spoke about the beautiful humility displayed by someone of Musk's stature. Jewish rabbis reflected on the concepts of teshuvah, return, and how even the most successful individuals continue searching for deeper meaning. Scientific communities had more mixed reactions. Some prominent scientists expressed disappointment, suggesting Musk had surrendered to irrationality. Others defended his right to a personal spiritual journey while maintaining their own secular worldviews. A few notable physicists and astronomers pointed out that many great scientists throughout history had maintained deep spiritual beliefs alongside their scientific work. Business analysts scrambled to predict how this might affect Musk's companies. Would Tesla shareholders react negatively? Would SpaceX's government contracts be affected? Stock prices fluctuated wildly in the first few days as the market tried to make sense of what this meant for Musk's business empire. But perhaps the most interesting reactions came from ordinary people. Those who had no personal connection to Musk but felt moved by witnessing such a public display of spiritual seeking from someone usually associated with technological rationalism. Social media filled with personal testimonials. I've been an engineer for 20 years. Always thought spirituality was for other people. Today made me question that for the first time. Never cared about Elon Musk before, but seeing someone so powerful show vulnerability and talk about searching for meaning, that hit different. As someone who left religion years ago, I never expected to be rethinking my stance because of a tech billionaire. Yet here I am. Churches, temples, mosques, and other religious institutions reported increased attendance in the weeks following the event. Not necessarily because people suddenly converted to any particular faith, but because many felt inspired to explore their own spiritual questions more deeply. Of course, not all reactions were positive. Critics were vocal, calling the whole thing an elaborate publicity stunt. Some pointed to Musk's history of provocative statements and unpredictable behavior as evidence that this was just another strategy to remain in the public eye. His burned through technological innovation and now his mining spirituality for attention, wrote one particularly cynical columnist. Others questioned the sincerity of such a public display of what should be a deeply personal experience. If this were genuine, why broadcast it to millions? They asked. Musk himself remained silent in the immediate aftermath. His social media accounts, usually active with updates about his companies or provocative statements, posted nothing beyond a simple thank you for your support and respect during this time. This silence only intensified public curiosity. What was happening behind the scenes? Was this truly a profound personal transformation, or would Musk soon return to business as usual, this spiritual detour forgotten? The answer would come 3 weeks later, in a way no one expected. The personal loss. For 21 days after his baptism, Elon Musk maintained an uncharacteristic public silence. His companies continued their operations, but the man himself seemed to have stepped away from the spotlight, something virtually unprecedented in his career. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, a simple post appeared on his social media. The journey to faith often begins with loss. It's time I shared mine. Attached was a link to a longer statement, one that would reveal the deeply personal catalyst behind his spiritual transformation. The statement began simply, 6 months ago, I lost someone who changed my life. His name was Dr. Marcus Chen, and few of you would have heard of him. He wasn't famous. He worked quietly behind the scenes at my companies for 15 years as both a scientific advisor and, though I didn't recognize it at the time, a spiritual mentor. Musk went on to describe how Chen, a brilliant physicist who had maintained a deep spiritual faith throughout his scientific career, had succumbed to a sudden illness. Their final conversations, Musk revealed, had centered not on technology or business but on questions of meaning, purpose, and what might exist beyond the physical world. Marcus never pushed his beliefs on me. He simply lived them, integrating his scientific brilliance with his spiritual convictions in a way I'd never witnessed before. When facing death, he displayed a peace I couldn't understand, a peace that science alone couldn't explain. The post continued, revealing vulnerabilities that the public had never before seen from the tech magnate. In our final conversation, Marcus asked me a question I couldn't answer. Elon, you've changed the world, but has the world changed you? Have you allowed yourself to be transformed by something greater than yourself? His death left a void that no technological achievement could fill. For months, I struggled privately with questions I'd previously dismissed. I began reading the philosophical and spiritual texts Marcus had recommended over the years but that I'd always been too busy to explore. The revelation sent shockwaves through the media landscape. This wasn't the calculated public persona most associated with Musk. This was raw, vulnerable, human. People who had been skeptical of his baptism now saw it in a new light, not as a publicity stunt but as a genuine response to profound personal loss and the existential questions it raised. Journalists tracked down colleagues who had known Dr. Chen, painting a picture of a humble genius who had influenced Musk's thinking in ways few had recognized. Former classmates described Chen as someone who had never seen conflict between scientific inquiry and spiritual seeking. One colleague shared an anecdote. I remember Marcus telling Elon once, the universe speaks 2 languages, mathematics and metaphor. A wise person listens to both. At the time, Elon laughed it off, but I could tell those words stayed with him. As this new context emerged, the public narrative around Musk's baptism shifted dramatically. What had been viewed by many as an